Have you ever been told that discipline is everything? That if you just had more discipline, every problem in your life would magically disappear? Yeah, about that. It's not the full story. In today's episode, we're diving into a fresh take on self-discipline, one that's more human, more forgiving, and honestly, way more effective. We'll unpack 5 simple strategies you can start using today to boost your self-discipline without feeling like you're stuck pushing a boulder uphill forever. Plus, I'll share some behind-the-scenes insights from one of the most consistent writers out there, Ryan Harper, and how his life philosophy can shift the way you think about getting things done. But before we jump in, here's a quick jingle to set the vibe. So, let's kick this off with something a little controversial. The idea that discipline is the ultimate solution to all of life's problems is kind of a scam. We've all heard it from the so-called hustle gurus. If you're not disciplined, you'll never succeed. You just need to lock in harder, work harder, grind harder. And sure, discipline matters. But pretending it's the silver bullet that fixes everything, that's not just misleading, it's damaging. Because here's the truth. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself through every miserable task in life. It's about building an internal system that actually supports you. One that makes doing hard things feel, dare I say it, a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. And if you've ever felt guilty for not being perfectly disciplined all the time, trust me, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because the story you've been told about discipline is incomplete. And that brings us perfectly into the next idea. Why discipline often feels like rolling a giant boulder uphill, and how to make that feel a whole lot better. All right, picture this. You're standing at the bottom of a hill. In front of you is a massive boulder. Your job? Push it all the way to the top. That's what discipline feels like for most people. You've got a project you don't feel like working on, a report, a workout, studying for an exam, and every single step feels like a brutal uphill battle. You're using pure willpower to shove that boulder higher, one exhausting push at a time. And sure, maybe you get it to the top. Maybe you finish the assignment, submit the presentation, whatever it is. But what happens the next day? Another boulder, another hill, and suddenly, life starts to feel a lot like that old myth about Sisyphus, endlessly rolling a rock uphill, only to have it roll right back down. Honestly, that's not sustainable. It's not how we're meant to live. The real magic happens when you change the game, when you set things up so that it feels like the boulder is rolling downhill. Instead of forcing yourself through pain and misery, what if the work itself became energizing, enjoyable, even, dare I say, fun? Now, before you think I'm selling you a fantasy, let's be real. Not everything can be fun all the time. There's always a little hump, a little bit of resistance you've got to push through at the start. But once you get over that initial bump, momentum kicks in, and suddenly, everything gets easier. You're not forcing yourself anymore, you're riding the momentum. And that's exactly where smart strategies for discipline come in. Not to shove the boulder up the whole hill, but just to get you over the hump. And one of the most powerful ways to do that? Well, it all starts with knowing exactly what your main thing is. Here's where a lot of people, maybe even most of us, get tripped up. It's not that they're lazy, it's not that they lack motivation. It's that they're trying to do way too many things at once. See, when you're juggling 12 different goals, it's almost impossible to be disciplined. Your attention is scattered, your energy's divided, and even the best intentions crumble under the weight of too much stuff. One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard in Sase, and it completely changed the way I work, is this: do fewer things, but do them better. It's not sexy, it's not flashy, but it's true. Focus on the tiny handful of things that actually move your life forward. Let the rest fall away. There's even an ancient quote from the philosopher Seneca that nails this perfectly. If a man does not know to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. In other words, if you don't know what matters most, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you'll just drift aimlessly. Modern thinkers like Greg McKeown in Essentialism and Cal Newport in Slow Productivity say the same thing. Prioritize ruthlessly. Protect your focus. Choose just a few things that truly matter, because when you do, discipline stops feeling so heavy. It becomes a natural extension of clarity. And here's a simple exercise to check yourself. Look at your goals for the year. If you've got more than 3 or 4, you've got too many. Cut it down. Focus on the vital few. Because once you simplify, you're no longer trying to push a dozen boulders up a dozen hills. You're just rolling one, and it's already starting to pick up speed. And speaking of rolling, let's talk about the biggest reason most people stop rolling forward. They set the bar way too high. Now, here's a trap that catches so many of us, especially when we're just starting out. Perfectionism. We set these ridiculously high standards for ourselves. The workout has to be perfect. The project has to be flawless. The YouTube video has to go viral. And when reality doesn't match up to that impossible standard, what happens? We freeze. We procrastinate. We tell ourselves, if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. But here's the truth no one talks about enough. Your first 50 attempts at anything are probably going to suck. And that's not just okay. It's necessary. Look at anyone who's great at what they do. They didn't start off amazing. They started off terrible. They lowered the bar just enough so they could actually take action, over and over and over. One of the most powerful models that explains this comes from Stanford scientist B.J. Fogg. It's called the behavior model. In short, it shows that if something is easy to do, you're way more likely to do it, even if you're not feeling super motivated. So instead of asking, how can I be perfect? Or Zrina, ask, what's the tiniest step I can take right now? Want to start studying? Just open your book for 5 minutes. Want to start running? Just put on your shoes and walk for 2 minutes. Want to start writing? Just write a single, messy paragraph. Because once you start, momentum kicks in. 5 minutes turns into 15. 2 minutes turns into a mile. 1 paragraph turns into a full page. And here's the kicker. The goal isn't to have a perfect track record. The goal is to build a rhythm you can trust. And speaking of trust, the next big shift in building real discipline is learning to trust the process, even when it feels messy. Here's something that doesn't get said enough when we talk about discipline. There's a battle going on inside all of us. On one side, there's the higher self, the part of you that wants long-term wins, health, growth, fulfillment. The voice that says, go to bed early, eat clean, stay focused. And on the other side, there's the lower self, the part that wants immediate pleasure. Stay up late playing video games, eat another cookie, binge Netflix until 2 a.m. Now, a lot of advice out there basically tells you to shame your lower self into submission, to treat it like a bad kid you have to lock away. But here's the thing. That never really works. When you shove parts of yourself into a corner, they don't disappear. They just get louder. They rebel. The better approach? Acknowledge both sides. Listen to both voices. Understand that both are trying to help you in their own weird way. It's kind of like being the CEO of a messy team inside your head. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone wants to be heard. And your job isn't to shut anyone down, it's to guide the conversation toward a smarter decision. So, for example, let's say you're deep into a video game at 10:30 p.m. and you know you should start winding down for bed. Your lower self wants to keep playing. Your higher self wants you to sleep. Instead of fighting, you negotiate. Maybe you say, okay, we'll stop playing now, but we can watch a few game walkthrough videos while brushing our teeth. Both sides get a little win, and you stay on track without feeling miserable. This way, discipline stops being a war inside your brain and starts becoming teamwork. Because when you stop demonizing parts of yourself, you stop wasting energy fighting yourself. And that energy, you can use it to build habits, finish projects, and actually enjoy the process. And speaking of processes, one of the biggest killers of self-discipline is a total lack of structure. Which brings us neatly into the next key idea. Why routine, with a little bit of flexibility, is absolutely essential. Here's the thing about discipline that most people overlook. It thrives on structure. Without some kind of routine, even the most motivated people eventually drift. It's like trying to sail without a compass. You might have the best ship, but you're just going to end up wherever the wind blows. When you build a daily rhythm, even a loose one, you create anchors for your energy. You take the guesswork out of your day. And suddenly, making progress doesn't feel so exhausting. It just becomes what you do. But, and this is crucial, too much structure can backfire. If your routine is so rigid that one small disruption sends your whole day into chaos, that's not discipline, that's fragility. Real discipline isn't about living like a robot. It's about finding a balance between structure and flexibility. Think of it like this. You want enough of a system to guide you, but enough freedom to adapt when life inevitably throws curveballs. Some people call it the most days rule. Write most days, work out most days, meditate most days. You're aiming for consistency, not perfection. Another great trick is the 2-day rule. You're allowed to skip one day, but never 2 in a row. That little bit of forgiveness keeps you moving forward without spiraling into self-blame. Or you can even set A, B, and C goals for your habits. A goal, the best case scenario. B goal, a pretty good backup. C goal, the absolute minimum, like a 5-minute walk. That way, no matter what life throws at you, a sick day, a crazy work schedule, a missed alarm, you're still winning. You're still showing up, because here's the secret. Momentum matters more than perfection. And speaking of momentum, the next piece of the puzzle is about sticking with your systems, even when something shiny and new tries to pull you off course. All right, real talk. One of the fastest ways to destroy your discipline is constantly chasing the next best thing. You know how it goes. One week you're all in on one productivity app. The next week you're trying a new planner, then a new workout program, a new diet, a new note-taking system, and on and on. Here's the hard truth. Switching systems feels productive, but it's usually just procrastination in disguise. The people who actually get things done, who stay consistent over years, not just weeks, almost always have one thing in common. They pick a system and they stick to it. Take someone like Ryan Harper, for example. He's written a dozen bestsellers, runs a bookshop, raises a family, and somehow still manages to stay healthy and calm. His secret? It's not chasing the latest hacks. It's sticking to the same simple writing system he's used for over a decade. Sure, there might be slightly better tools out there. Sure, some new app might be 2% more efficient. But here's the thing. The real cost isn't the inefficiency. It's the mental energy you burn constantly switching. Every time you change systems, you have to relearn things, reorganize, rebuild habits from scratch. It's like making yourself start from zero over and over again. Instead, discipline comes from lowering the friction, making the next step automatic, familiar, almost boring, because boring is good. Boring gets you over the hump. Boring builds momentum. Boring, when it comes to systems, is what actually changes your life. And here's the kicker. If you just commit to one system, even a basic one, and you use it every day for months or years, there's almost no way you don't succeed. It's not about finding the perfect tool. It's about making the tool you already have work for you. And that brings us to a beautiful old concept from philosophy, euthymia, tranquility. It's the calm, deep confidence you get when you stay on your path without constantly being distracted by the paths crossing yours, which leads us naturally into wrapping up all these ideas into one final thought. So, stepping back for a second, what's the real secret behind self-discipline? It's not grinding harder. It's not shaming yourself into action. It's building a system that makes doing the right thing feel easier. It's focusing on fewer things, starting tiny, trusting the messy process, balancing your different inner voices, and sticking with what actually works, even when something new and shiny tries to pull you away. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, most days, and keeping the promises you make to yourself. And hey, if you're still listening right now, here's a little challenge for you. Pick just one thing, one habit, one goal, one system. It could be something simple, like writing for 5 minutes a day, or doing one push-up, or just turning off your phone an hour before bed. Whatever it is, stick with it for the next 7 days. No switching apps, no second guessing, no trying to optimize it to death. Just pick it, stick with it, and see how you feel at the end of the week. Because you don't build discipline by being perfect. You build it by practicing showing up, even in small ways. And if you do that, even just for a week, you'll start to feel something shift. You'll start to trust yourself more. You'll start to build that momentum that makes everything else a little bit easier. All right, that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this and you want to dive deeper into the science of discipline, I've got another episode linked where we talk about evidence-based strategies like mental contrasting and implementation intentions. Super practical stuff that can really boost your consistency. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Stay kind to yourself, stay focused, and remember, it's the tiny wins that build a legendary life. Catch you in the next one.
Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, the best way to support the podcast is to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every bit of support helps us keep creating content that actually matters. See you in the next one.